All right, it is Sunday night, almost Monday morning, and Week 12 is almost in the books.
Yeah.
And there were some poor performances. Our performance might have been as bad as some of the worst ones. So I don't know if you look at Rodgers, Garrett, us. I'm not sure where we would fall in that list.
We rank poorly this week, but not below Rodgers and not below Garrett.
I would agree. I'm actually really curious now. Where does sleep rank in your list of the greatest things on earth?
Oh, I like a good night's sleep. It's just that the problem is Sunday night to Monday is never good.
Right?
You know, because you wake up.
So you might just be like, screw it.
I just say, like, you know, an extra, and this is probably not right. If you're a sleep scientist, let us know. But like if I go to bed at 1:30 versus 1 o'clock and I wake up at, 7:30, like that extra hour, it's already a shit night of sleep anyway, right?
Yeah.
So whereas like this morning where I didn't wake up until like pretty late, those are the best. And the extra half hour there I think matters.
I actually don't like sleeping in.
Okay.
Because I feel like I'm wasting the day.
I like staying up late. That's like my favorite time. But
there you go. That's what you tune in for. All right. So here's the question. Was it a more embarrassing and poor performance for Green Bay, LaFleur, and Rodgers, or
yes,
Garrett, Dak, and the Cowboys? Because Garrett is going to get dumped on, and people are going to question whether or not he should still be the coach in Dallas. And I don't know if people are going to do that for LaFleur and Rodgers because they lost by 30 points in San Francisco
to a team that everybody thinks is a juggernaut at this point. No, the most.
What do people think the Patriots are?
Well, I think people think the Patriots are a deeply flawed team that are going to be there at the end no matter what, and it's just like a foregone conclusion. Because you look at Dallas, right? You got the 2 tripping penalties. The one in the penultimate drive for Dallas that erased a first down. You have, the blocked punt is kind of a random play. You had the N'Keal Harry touchdown, which, like, did he get his foot in or not type of thing. Like, there's a lot of things besides Garrett's decision-making and his, like, overall inability to beat a winning team that the people are going to talk about before they get to Garrett. If you get to Sunday Night Football, and we talked about our friend Ben Baldwin and his Rodgers hatred last week, and we still claim that Rodgers was this sort of elite quarterback. If you get to Green Bay, their defense, we remarked during the game, I thought their defense played fine. I mean, they got sacks, they stopped the run early in the game, they got pressure on Garoppolo, but eventually the thing caved in because they were on the field so long, and the Niners are a good offense. Rodgers was absolutely dreadful. And I think, again, it's hard to untangle these things because Rodgers averaged 3.2 yards per attempt from a clean pocket tonight. And he had enough. He had 27 of his 41 dropbacks were clean. It wasn't like he was under siege the entire time. He took the 5 sacks on the 14 dropbacks where he was pressured, averaged 2.9 yards per pass attempt. Like, He refused to be aggressive, right? He refused to go downfield, and the times he did, it was very hesitant in doing so. But is that LaFleur too? Because LaFleur's calling pass plays where like Rodgers' immediate like instinct is to throw the ball to the back or to throw the ball to Devontae Adams short. Like, I think like if you watch that game, like you're talking about, you're coming off of a bye. San Francisco is coming off of 3 straight games, right? Gave up 25 points to Arizona. They lost to Seattle, and Seattle didn't play great offensively, but ultimately moved the ball enough to win the game. And then Arizona got a 16-0 lead, eventually lost, but still their defense didn't look great. And you come off a bye looking like that? I think Green Bay Green Bay is going to get a great deal of the, especially because the game was on a prime time sort of spot, even though New England's game was as well.
So you're going New England. I mean, you're going Green Bay.
I'm going Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean the answer is Green Bay, and it's not even close. And you mentioned a bunch of different things, but I think the biggest one is that this shines a light on a simple fact, which is Green Bay's offense hasn't been great this season.
No.
It hasn't by any stretch. They've had a couple of games that have been really good, But overall, it's been pretty darn close to the Mike McCarthy offense. And the idea that LaFleur has come in and rejuvenated this offense is vastly overblown. And now they're tied with the Vikings. And if it weren't for luck boxing into this easy schedule because they sucked, they would be in real peril. The problem for Dallas, and the reason that people are going to make a big deal about Jason Garrett, speaking of lack of aggressiveness, kicking a field goal to cut it from needing a touchdown to a needing a touchdown game at the end of the game, costing his team a ton of chance of winning that game, is that they had a chance to win that game.
Yeah.
And Green Bay didn't, basically, from the start, right? So it feels worse for Dallas and Garrett because they actually got close enough to beat the Patriots and didn't, whereas Green Bay just got kicked out of the door immediately.
Well, and it's another game for Dallas where they should have won and lost. Sunday Night Football about 3 weeks ago with Minnesota was sort of the same idea. Against the Jets was also one on the road. Against New Orleans as well on a Sunday night game. Like, there have been repeated efforts for them against teams with winning records where they haven't gotten the job done. Now they're sitting at 6-5 with a tough schedule coming up, starting with Buffalo on Thursday on Thanksgiving. However, right, we talk about their schedule in relation to the Eagles all the time. But the Eagles are atrocious. Like,
they are really bad.
They're really bad. And we talked about them being sort of like this Falcon, like the new Falcons. And they were every bit the new Falcons this game, right? Because they did they stopped Russell Wilson. Anytime you can hold Russell Wilson to 17 points is a win for your defense. And like Carson, and granted, wide receivers are out for Philadelphia, and that was part, if we talk about, us picking games, that was something that once that became an injury, we went from having a pick on that game to not having one once Jeffrey was out. But it was like, he doesn't have anybody to throw to except for Ertz. And Ertz isn't having the type of season that he had a season ago. And you look at Wentz and that offensive line, they're just lost, right? Like Brandon Brooks, the best guard in the league this year, had to sit out because of an anxiety attack. Lane Johnson as well. Like that team, there's just always something with them, and that to me it screams Falcons. So when we look in the future for Dallas, like Dallas might just win this division at 8-8 and get a home playoff game.
They might, but they also might not. That's the thing, is they have a really hard schedule, and the Eagles, as bad as they are, have a ridiculously easy schedule, right? They don't play anybody until they play Dallas again. I mean, it is a joke. You want to read their schedule?
It's not good. It's at Dolphins, home to Giants, at Washington.
And then they play the Cowboys.
They play home to Cowboys, and then they play at Giants. But again, okay, so
here's the thing, is Jason Garrett and the Dallas Cowboys walked in to a beaten down Patriots team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm not making, I think I'll get back to the Eagles here in a second, but this is why it's really bad, is they looked as though they were unprepared to play that game. Like, they made so many mistakes. The fact that it was raining was this huge deal for them.
Yeah.
Whereas the Patriots were prepared for it. And I know that's home field advantage, but how do you have all this money and you're not prepared? I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are the richest franchise in the NFL, and Dak's trying to figure out whether he wants to wear a glove or not in the rain. They were totally unprepared for that game. The receivers were unprepared for that game. They made mental mistakes over and over and over again. They couldn't take advantage of the fact that Tom Brady averaged 5.8 yards from a clean pocket, which is not good.
Yeah.
Right? They were not an
He looked
explosive.
better than what people were going to say with his elbow and all that kind of stuff. He made some solid throws. A lot got dropped. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that was a prime game to win, right? Both NFC East teams should have beaten the Patriots in the last 2 weeks. And Dallas, Buffalo at home, at Chicago. Chicago's kind of that team where, I don't know, like their defense, they're
not the Dolphins.
Yeah, they're not the Dolphins. Then they have Rams at home, then at Eagles, and then Washington. I think 8-8 wins the NFC East, and maybe 8-8 wins the NFC East, and I don't know who gets there first, but the issue is I think I do think that Dallas they just run laps around Philadelphia in terms of offensive execution, right? Not offensive play calling. They're both, I think, a tragedy in offensive play calling right now. But offensive execution, I think Dak, throwing to guys like Gallup and Cooper and so on and so forth. So I still would take Dallas to win the NFC East, but the schedule differential is compelling.
And Wentz doesn't look great.
Oh, Wentz looks like he's seen ghosts. I mean, he looks like Darnold on Monday Night Football against New England.
It's really bad. The Eagles honestly, that offense never had a shot. And the thing is, the Seahawks are not a good defense. It's not as though they're coming out there. Clowney was out as well. It's not like they're coming out there and just rolling out the 49ers defense by any stretch of the imagination.
The swing pass that Carson Wentz threw to Miles Sanders in the red zone when he was wide open and there was no one.
LeBron James couldn't have caught that.
LeBron James. It was. They have to get right really quickly, and we've given Doug Peterson a lot of praise over the years, but they simply run the football too much on early downs. They put Wentz in a tough position, and then Wentz hasn't executed. So
do you think? So, our lock of the week was Green Bay to cover 3.5. They obviously didn't come.
We
close.
didn't have a prayer no matter which game we picked this week, so it wasn't really.
They obviously didn't come close, and our model shaded the Eagles a little bit at the beginning of the week. I actually didn't even like Green Bay at the beginning of the week, and we talked ourselves into it. The funny thing is, I'm thinking back to when we did this last week, and the one game we really liked was Buffalo.
Yeah.
And
Well,
our models on the other side, we didn't know what to do.
And Denver was the pick of a lot of people going into this weekend. And so our model, them were all wrong. Our intuition on Sunday night was correct, which was that Buffalo was the side. That game got all the way down to 3.5 even by the time it closed. So weird stuff.
So I do think we're a little jaded by the fact that these teams let us down. But I almost think we should be harsher on Green Bay than we will be. It seemed because they're still 8-3, they still have this easy schedule. They didn't play with any urgency.
No.
The Cowboys may have not looked ready to play football, but there was some urgency there.
They were trying to win the football game the whole time.
The Packers were just not trying to win the football game. I don't know if Matt LaFleur didn't pass math class, but not understanding that you need to score 3 touchdowns without the other team scoring, which is unlikely given their history, in 15 minutes and running the play clock down every time and then running the ball and Rodgers just not throwing the ball downfield. And if he did, he was making sure it wouldn't get intercepted because heaven forbid I throw an interception. That's embarrassing. And so
there were no excuses for Green Bay to play the way they did tonight. Whereas when you look at Dallas, there were plenty of excuses. The weather, the fact that New England does all practices in that weather, et cetera. Green Bay, you came off a bye. You should have absolutely no excuse, and they played extremely poorly there. So unfortunately,
this is crazy. Aaron Rodgers completed 0 throws, 10+ yards downfield. 0, not 1.
Well, we were talking because
it's not like Kyler Murray couldn't do that.
I grew up rooting against the Packers, right? And I told you I was all these years of me being terrified of Aaron Rodgers. And I told you, if this gets to a 3rd down, I have 0 faith that he's going to be able to complete a pass. 0 faith that he's going to pick up this 1st down. And that was the entire night. The Packers, I don't think, converted a 3rd down until the 4th quarter, if they did at all. We started prepping, by that time. So, it was brutal. The other one, that I, was kind of an interesting game among these teams that should be considered the best in the NFL. New Orleans, multiple double touchdown leads today, ended up losing them, but then ended up, I think, being lucky to win the football game because of the short missed field goal by Carolina. Does that affect your view of them as the premier team in the NFC right now?
Well, I am curious about this because there are these really good teams, and it's all of them have a deficiency. And week to week, some of them show up more than others. So if we look at San Francisco, New England, New Orleans, they all win today. San Francisco in resounding fashion. New England kind of squeaks one out. New Orleans' offense looks dominant at times, but then, as does their defense, but then all of a sudden, just kind of falls apart at the end and almost loses.
Right.
And I don't know what the bigger Achilles heel is that we should be most worried about, because each of them has one clearly, and I think it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, I don't think the Achilles heel for Carolina is all that sustainable, right? They had
Carolina.
New Orleans against Carolina. They had a kind of a bad penalty on Cameron Jordan that extended a drive when they were ahead
That's true.
by a decent amount.
That punch was ridiculous.
Yeah. They had, I believe, a pretty bad pass interference penalty that got the ball down to the 1 yard line, I believe at the end of the half. And then they got they had one play away from ending the half with no score against them. Again, they got multiple 2-score leads twice, right? They started off 14-0. They got caught at halftime and then got another 13-point lead later on. So I don't see that as a huge deal. Breeze's arm strength was an issue a couple times on throws. We remarked, if
he had one down the left that should have
Ted Ginn should have came back for.
But also Ted Ginn should have just caught a pass.
Yeah.
Like that would have helped.
There was one
too.
down the middle of the field that was bad. There was the interception that I believe Traquan Smith kind of got wrestled away from him. So, we talked about New Orleans as a value to win the Super Bowl last week. Talked about New England as well. Both those teams won. So division games are hard to win by multiple scores. So, probably good for New Orleans to rebound. They do play Thursday against Atlanta, a team that's smarting now after losing to Jameis and the Bucs.
Okay, so let's stick with the NFC then. San Francisco or New Orleans?
I still think it's New Orleans because if we're going to spend all this time bashing Green Bay for being a no-show and being a fraud, then beating up on them is impressive, but probably doesn't move the needle nearly as much as we think just based upon the 37-8 score. New Orleans sort of won a game that was close and sort of tested them a little bit, and we liked them going into the week. So I would still say New Orleans.
Yeah. I've been on the New Orleans bandwagon for a while. Here's what I will say about my San Francisco 49ers and our march to the beaches of Miami in the Super Bowl is that the way the Niners can beat anyone so long as their tackles are average.
Okay.
And if that happens, they can beat anybody. And as great as Drew Brees is, as wonderful as he is, the Niners have sort of the perfect situation to beat up on him. Okay, to make him, just to think about it just a little bit. And they have the athletes to cover Alvin Kamara, to cover Michael Thomas. I'm not worried about anyone else on that team.
Yeah.
And what we saw with the Niners passing offense, the Green Bay Packers defense played pretty decently, right? But the Niners offense with Kittle and Sanders and Deebo Samuel is actually legit. And it comes down to if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to throw, picks, right?
Yep.
But if he's not terrified about his tackles just getting whipped on every single play, to me, they can beat anyone. So I think the San Francisco 49ers are closing the gap on New Orleans. And I would have said hands down it's New Orleans a week ago. I'm not saying that now.
Close. Breeze today was interestingly 9 of 9 for 98 yards and a touchdown on 11 dropbacks when pressured. 149 passer rating. He was struggled, as you said, throwing deep, middle, deep left. But for me, the Saints defense is interesting because I do think that they can do some things that affect the Niners, specifically the fact that they can pressure with Cameron Jordan and the guy they drafted in the first round last year that's escaping, Marcus Davenport, and then Demario Davis, their middle linebacker, I think is a very good player who can match up, with the tight ends and the backs pretty well. So hopefully we get this in the NFC Championship game. Those are the two best teams, and they're, the most compelling. And as of right now, it'll be played in San Francisco.
Where would how far back are the Seahawks?
No, it's interesting, right? Because we always talk about the Seahawks' weaknesses, and they have them, but they're 6-0 on the road, and they do this thing where they come, they beat teams and they win games, even when people think they're a fraud. They weren't favored until all the injury news with respect to the Eagles. I mean, they're probably a quarter of a standard deviation below these two teams. I don't think that they're that far away, especially with Russell Wilson.
So they're what, 5-point underdogs, 4.5-point underdogs?
On a neutral field against these two teams, they are 3-point underdogs.
Okay.
Right? Just like we saw on Monday night, they were 6-point dogs to San Francisco. I think that probably carries.
I think it's a little less. I think Russell Wilson's just that good. Russell Wilson made a throw today on that toss back down the middle in double coverage. That was just there's no one else making that throw. I mean, Aaron Rodgers sure as heck wasn't making that throw.
He had a couple deep passes that should have been caught by Metcalf and company as well. That game would have been more spread out had his deep passes been caught. He also had that throw to Hollister where he missed it by missed it by a foot. So
I think that NFC is getting jumbled up, and then on the AFC side, the Patriots.
We talk for 1 second? Where's Minnesota? I think Minnesota. Well, we'll find out next week. But Minnesota and Seattle play on Monday Night Football. Right. I think Minnesota is at least on par with Green Bay, probably on par with Seattle at this point. Don't you think?
I'd agree they're on par with Green Bay. I think they're worse than Seattle.
Okay.
And the reason for that is Kirk Cousins.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Right. I don't think
we'll find out where the betting markets say.
I don't think either one has a good defense.
No, not anymore.
They all have some issues on offense, and if you said, hey, you have one drive and you score a touchdown, and you look at Kirk Cousins and you look at Russell Wilson, it's just like it's not even close.
For sure.
On the AFC side, you've got the Patriots, and then we're going to find out what the Ravens, can do on the road after having just beat up on teams over and over and over again. They play the Rams. Let's talk about Monday night real quick. Right now, 3.5 is what the Rams are getting at home. I can't believe we're saying that.
Yeah.
But the Rams are getting 3.5 points at home. Talk me out of betting the Rams getting 3.5 points at home.
Well, you would just be going against the market, right? Because this has been at 3 plus 100 for the Rams, minus 120 for the Ravens all week. And it takes a decent amount to move that off of 3 to 3.5, even though the juice is now minus 110. But like for me, it's just one of those things where do you want to be against where I'm guessing the money is being bet, which is the Ravens, but that's a random walk, right? So if you like the Rams, I think you bet them here. We talked about this on the podcast on Thursday last week, where it's the Rams I think have the athletes and have the players up front to play defense against the Ravens. The question becomes with Brandon Cooks back, with Robert Woods, I'm not sure about him right now, but Cooper Kupp obviously, and then the emergence of Gerald Everett. Hopefully he's healthier this week than he was last week, and with an offensive line that's one more week in cahoots with each other. Does that make the Rams offense able to sort of keep up? To me, it's all about the Rams offense.
Yeah, here's the way I think of it with Jared Goff. So Russell Wilson's a great example of this. Russell Wilson has these games where he's terrible, but you never lose hope with Russell Wilson. It's like, man, he could be down 3 scores, and as long as Matt LaFleur is not over there milking clock, like this guy can put it together and just single-handedly get you back in it.
Yep.
When Jared Goff has those games, you may as well pack up and go home, man, because that guy, I love Jared Goff, but when it gets ugly, it is horrifyingly ugly. And the Ravens are a team that have been making the ugly happen for a lot of teams, right? That's kind of been their MO. It's like, oh, you're going to poop the bed? Ravens are here to make sure it happens, right? It happened. I mean, they did it to New England. And that's what worries me is you just like never have a shot. And that's what you're always hoping for if you have a dog, right? Like this live dog, I've got Jared Goff. He's going to, and the Rams just don't give me that vibe, but I do think it is a value at 3.5 at home. I wouldn't expect the Ravens.
Yeah.
What's up?
No, I was just looking at what you had on Green Line. I was, in terms of, this is a game too, where I think if you look at the total at 47.5, this could be another game, much like what we saw in Sunday Night Football last week, where the over has no freaking chance, and it by the second quarter. Yeah. Or
Lamar Jackson has 3 touchdowns in
and
the first
Marcus
quarter.
Peters runs another interception down the left sideline, and the under doesn't have a chance. So that'll be an interesting one for tonight with the Ravens trying to sort of keep their supremacy in the AFC. The Rams just trying to stay in it in the NFC.
Right. I mean, just hoping for a prayer. It'll be a real bad look for the Sean McVay coaching tree if LaFleur just gets blasted by Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco.
Well, Zach Taylor's 0-11.
Zach Taylor's, the poor guy. And then, the Rams will be out of it if, they lose this game.
Sure.
So they've got to get a win here. I'm really looking forward to seeing this game. If McVay, I'll be interested to see if McVay can make some decisions that can come close to John Harbaugh, because John Harbaugh is going to make a lot of bold calls that are going to put you behind even further if you're not willing to make the same level of decision. So it'll be interesting to see. Ready to get into games?
Yeah, we move on to week 13.
So real quick, before we do so, a little reminder here that starting tomorrow, or today if you're listening to this, there is going to be a PFF cyber sale. It's going to run through the following Monday, which is in December. So you can use promo code CYBER40 to save 40% on an Edge and Elite annual subscription, which means that you get to use PFF Greenline for both college and pro. That's a ton of games. Bowl season's coming up. As I've told you before, it's the only way to actually get through the bowl season. Yeah. So use promo code CYBER40, CYBER40. It saves you 40%. I'm sure people will tweet that out, but I just had to get that in there. All right, Thanksgiving games. What's the ideal game? Say we didn't have Sunday Night Football. What's the ideal game to eat during?
Oh, it's the 12:30 game. Because Detroit is like, I mean, I guess a couple years ago we had a pick on Detroit, Minnesota. I think a blocked field goal got called back. We lost.
So it goes Chicago, Detroit is the one you're referring to.
That's the one you eat during because
that's the morning one.
Because the probability that Detroit's game is
or not morning
is booty is pretty high.
Yeah, but that's early in the day.
Right, but my family has always eaten around the noon time.
Okay. I would say it is the latter, and here's why. If you eat during Chicago, Detroit, you are likely to be asleep during the next two games, which are generally better. So what you should do is cook a little bit, do some preparation during Chicago, Detroit.
Yeah.
Have everyone ready to sit down and eat. The next game, Bills Cowboys, is at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 on the West Coast.
Yeah.
If you're on the West Coast, you're just living the dream because you wake up to football. You're maybe
and then
slipping
by
a
the
piece
time
of pumpkin pie.
football's over, there's still some time left in the day.
You go out.
Yeah.
And party with all the people you don't want to see that you remember from high school.
Wow.
And then the night game is just too late to eat. So to me, the ideal time if you're on the East Coast is 4:30, which is right at that Buffalo Dallas game. Let's start with Chicago, Detroit, though. So Stafford might be shut down. So I don't really know where to go with this. Let's assume Jeff Driscoll plays. What did you say this would be?
Yeah, I said -2.5 with Stafford is what I wrote. But then I think, so if you put, Driscoll's played a lot better than I think than people had envisioned. So I would say I'd flip it if Driscoll starts, though. So I would say Chicago -2.5 at Detroit if Driscoll starts.
Yeah, I had Detroit -3 with Stafford.
Which is about the same. What would you put with Driscoll?
Yeah, I'd probably flip it.
Okay, yeah. So right now, Chicago is favored by a point.
So kind of hedging the bets there.
But it's -105. Oh, it's kind of strange because, anyway. So it's -105 with Chicago. It's weird how the money line on BetOnline, it's actually more expensive to bet Detroit money line. But Detroit's +1, right? Then Chicago, which is Chicago -1. So it's probably just a misprice there. But, so Chicago's slightly favored here. Chicago, gave up. So in one sense, Chicago didn't cover this week. But in another sense, it was because Daniel Jones threw a touchdown to Golden Tate on 4th and 23 to get the game 19-14. Daniel Jones and company did have a one last shot to drive down and score. Did not. Chicago won, went to 5-6. Detroit lost to Washington so badly that Dwayne Haskins was taking selfies before the game was over.
He put the H back on his name.
Yeah. Detroit's defense is a lot worse than we thought it would be. And so it'll be interesting to see how much Mitch Trubisky can take advantage of it. Total on this game is 39. I really hope that I would probably bet the under here, frankly, given the short week and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. What side? Do you like a side here? Do you think Chicago wins?
I don't have a ton of faith in Chicago.
Here's what I'll say for right now. So so one of our win totals this year that we bet was 9.5 Chicago under, right? Chicago has 6 losses right now. The 7th would win that bet. in situations like this where you basically bet on Chicago to win the game, you can continue, like Chicago is going to, probably lose one of these games down the stretch. So, but you can continue to kind of get a middle here if you continue to bet Chicago. So if you want to hedge the Chicago under, this is an opportunity since it is a game where they are basically just pick a winner.
Yeah. I'm going to assume there are people out there that didn't follow us on the
Okay. But if
Chicago
you do,
under.
yeah.
Yeah.
If
Sure. If you're lucky enough to have the Chicago under, which is did not cash this week.
Yeah.
Soon. The thing with Chicago is their defense can take advantage of the Jeff Driscoll mistakes.
Yep.
Without a doubt. And Mitch Trubisky could also just show up and lay a complete egg on Thanksgiving morning. So that worries me a little bit. I got to think Stafford comes back and plays in this game and just kind of Herculean,
Yeah.
because that's just the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
Buffalo goes to Dallas. This is a pretty good game. When I saw the schedule, when it came out with Buffalo Dallas, I was like, man, it's kind of a stinker. Like I would have liked to see something a little better for Buffalo Dallas than Buffalo Dallas. A team come into Dallas that actually is good. And lo and behold, Buffalo kind of frisky, right? They'll have Josh Allen. He'll be throwing picks. He'll be running for first downs.
Looks like Mo Schrute when he runs.
Yep. And Dallas they've got to win this game, right? Because it's a team that they should beat on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
After that, a lot of questionable decisions. They look like they were unprepared. I have Dallas as a 6-point favorite in this game.
I said it was 5.5, and it is currently 7. So, an interesting thing, because we had Dallas going into the day as our 9th ranked ELO team. We had Buffalo at 19th. So if you look at this particular game, like maybe 7 points is warranted, but I don't know. My initial inclination is to think that Buffalo plus 7 would be a good bet this week. What say you?
I agree, and the reason that I agree is that the Dallas defense gets overhyped a lot. To me, that's why this is higher than we think it should be, is that people believe that the Dallas defense is loaded, and they really aren't that loaded. I mean, Leighton Vander Esch is going to miss again, but he hasn't played that as well this season. A lot of guys on that team have regressed defensively. It just happens. So I'm with you on that side.
I would say, so it'll be interesting to see what our model ends up saying. So make sure you get yourself an Elite subscription and look at that.
New Orleans Falcons, a tradition unlike any other. Thanksgiving.
If we make this a tradition, I'm not going to like it.
Yeah, it's not great. It would have been cool if Atlanta had won this week and still had a fighting chance. They do not anymore, and are 3-8, and they're playing for pride. So I have the Atlanta Falcons getting 6 points at home.
Yeah, I said Atlanta would be 7.5 point underdogs at home. And it looks like it's 7, but you're going to have to lay a little bit more to bet the 7 with Atlanta. So people are reacting a little bit more to the Saints' struggles against Carolina, it looks like, than the Falcons' struggles at home against Tampa Bay, which is interesting. I think people have a bigger opinion of Tampa Bay than maybe even we do in the betting markets.
Yeah. If Atlanta wins that game, though, I mean, they were favored in that game, right?
I think it's 6.5 if they win that game.
Really?
And but what if the Saints would have covered the 9.5? So Saints win by 14, let's say. Yeah. Falcons win by a touchdown against Tampa Bay. I think the spread's about the same.
Okay. I will be interested to see if Atlanta just lays down now that they've got no shot. Or are they like fighting for 8-8 for Dan Quinn?
I think they try to ruin New Orleans season at least this one time and then just get absolutely. Remember last Thanksgiving where Atlanta was 13.5 point underdogs. New Orleans won by 14, but Atlanta had like 3 fumbles in the red zone. All this kind of Atlanta nonsense.
It was the most Falcons-y game ever.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it ends up this go around.
So let's say you're sitting there Thanksgiving morning and you're like, I've got $20. I'm going to go a little parlay. Just I don't care about this $20, but just maybe, I can get them all right.
All right. I go Buffalo +7, under 45 in that game. And then under 39 in Detroit, Chicago. I'd stay away from Atlanta as a point of principle.
What's the total in New Orleans, Atlanta?
49.5, which I think is probably pretty good. I think we'll probably be on the under there.
Yeah, I actually really like the under in that game. So I would do Buffalo +7 as well. I would probably go under on New Orleans, Atlanta, and take Detroit.
+1 because you think Stafford's going to play.
Yeah.
Not bad.
There you go. Sunday. All right, we have 4 really good games on Sunday. 2 of them are in prime time. The other one is San Francisco at Baltimore. Let's start there. Incredible game because even though the Niners defense probably isn't as good as the Patriots, I don't know, maybe they are, but they have more athletes, and this is the defense that you want to see match up against Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense, because you would expect Robert Saleh to be pretty pumped up for this matchup.
When do you think he's not pumped up for matchup, though?
I don't know, man.
You think that guy watches Maction on Tuesday?
I got to imagine this guy gets up at like 5 a.m.
in those games.
2-hour workout, just pouring sweat. You know how The Rock wakes up at like 4:30 and is just drenched in sweat within 25 minutes? He heats his gym up.
Yeah.
That's Robert Saleh.
But he doesn't have to heat his gym up.
He probably does. He heats it up himself.
That dude volunteers to watch Maction games on Tuesday nights just to scout players and is at least half chubbed the whole time.
All right, this is interesting. So it's in Baltimore. What do you think the spread is?
2.5 Baltimore.
Okay. I, having done this before, San Francisco absolutely obliterated Green Bay, have Baltimore -3.5.
And let me look. Is it not there because they don't play it? They haven't played yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have to find a different, alternative place to get involved.
Can't believe they don't post them. Baltimore -4.5 before Sunday Night Football.
Okay. All right. So
I could see this coming down a smidge here.
I mean, would you take San Francisco in the points? I would say at 4.5.
At 4.5, I certainly would.
Yeah,
obviously.
I would too. I think, the interesting thing about San Francisco is I think we properly handicapped them all season until, basically this week was the first time, and even then it was because the betting markets went ahead and liked San Francisco so much that we came on the other side. This might be a place where, sort of 2 teams that are sort of overvalued. They're like peaking maybe a little too early. And I think people love the Ravens more than they love the Niners. And so maybe there's some value in the Niners, even though both teams, I think, a little overvalued just because of when they're peaking.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Niners are successful almost in spite of their quarterback play. And the Ravens are successful because of the offense they built around their quarterback play. And so I think the market will react more favorably to Lamar Jackson, and this offense is just unstoppable. And the Niners are in sort of a good spot here, right? They blew out a team.
Yeah.
They are galvanized now. No one got injured in that game.
Yep.
Kittle and Sanders are both back.
Yep.
Maybe they've gotten a little more continuity on the O-line. And the Ravens have to play a Rams team fighting for their life on Monday night and then travel back.
Yeah, they're also playing with house's money at this point, right? Because if you would have told any Niners fan, okay, the worst case scenario for you in this 3-game stretch is 1 and 2, you would have probably been like, oh, that sucks. That's not the perfect world, but
at least we can go 0-3.
Yeah, exactly. And if you win one of these 2 games, it's a resounding success. When it comes to at Ravens and then at Saints, you won the first game convincingly against a team that's hunting you down for that number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And so I think that they play a little bit more loose, whereas the Ravens still are staring up at the New England Patriots for the 1 seed in the AFC and looking down at Kansas City, who has a tiebreaker against them and is getting healthy coming off of a bye.
On the flip side, the Niners have the Saints the following week in a game that is even if they lose this game, what really matters in terms of getting home field. So it could also be a trap game.
Either side.
If facing one of the best teams in the NFL can ever be a trap game. What worries me about Jimmy G and the Niners on the road here is that the Ravens defense is super aggressive. So can you burn them? Yes, absolutely. But they blitz a ton, and Jimmy G leads the NFL in interceptions against the blitz and leads the NFL in turnover-worthy play rate under pressure. And like, we've seen the skittishness out of him, and the Ravens will take those to the house. And if you get behind on the Ravens, like, good luck, right?
But on the flip side, if you get ahead of the Ravens, we actually don't know how they'll respond.
Sure.
And the thing about the Niners that's awesome is that they manufacture open receivers probably better than anybody in the league. And the Ravens are a team, where are they strong? They're strong in coverage. You can beat them up in the front seven, and if you're above average at manufacturing open receivers, you're going to have a better chance against the Ravens than anybody else. And I think that, so this will be a great game. I can't wait to watch it.
The Niners are the only team, I tweeted this out, the Niners are the only team that run play action 30+% of the time and actually rank in the top 5 in yards per play on play action. Like, they do it a lot, and in there really good.
They crush you.
All right, the game that you are waiting for, the Oakland Raiders, who were trapped more than any teams. What's bigger than a trap?
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to them in New York, right? They know they're going to go play Kansas City.
Yep.
I don't know. They know intrinsically, I'm sure, that if they win that game, then that game against Kansas City is for, the division, basically.
All the marbles.
And they can't figure it out. And they get train wrecked by Sam Darnold.
Yeah, we ended up with a small edge on New York Jets plus 160, which was a small one win in a cloud full of losses. But that was a game where you look at Sam Darnold, right? And we talked about this last week. Sam Darnold has a lot of redeemable traits. And when you can get him in a situation where he's not playing from behind, you get him in a situation where you protect him, you get him in a situation where you're efficient on early downs, he can look very good. And Sam Darnold looked very good today, and he's looked good in all 3 of the Jets' wins the last 3 weeks.
Let me stop you there. If you put me out there against the Raiders' defense, I will look good.
Yeah, right? But sure.
Sam Darnold is well equipped to handle amateurish defensive schemes.
But we talked about the Raiders last week on the podcast and how their draft class was this, like, we should all be like getting on our knees for Todd McShay over the last, like,
Mike Mayock. Same difference.
Came in.
That's great.
Mike Mayock the last, like, but I see, and like now look, he like they can't get pressure.
Raiders, Kansas City. What do you think the spread is in this game?
7.5.
Yes, that is exactly what I said.
And it's 10. Wow. But you only have to lay $100 to win 100 to bet Kansas City.
Okay, so are you going to bet Oakland getting 10?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think this is a game. Yes, and here's the reason why. The Chiefs are not good enough defensively to lay more than 2 scores with. They're just not.
I agree, and I think they're not good enough defensively, but their offense also
there's too much unknown here, though.
Hasn't been like super great either.
There's too much unknown, right? Eric Fisher was horrible in his return from action against the Los Angeles Chargers. Tyreek Hill got hurt in that game. The running backs are just like Travis Kelce has not had the season that he's had before. The wide, Sammy Watkins as well. Like, again, to me, this just is a game where Kansas City gets out to a lead, and Oakland does Oakland-y crap the rest of the game, and they lose by 8. And we're all, if you bet Kansas City minus the points, you're mad at yourself because
Here's the thing. We're going to hear about this 20 times this week. Andy Reid coming off bye, how fantastic he is, right, when he has extra days to prepare and all this stuff. And the Oakland defense is just a joke. I mean, they don't even.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. But I am.
What
I'm
do you think
nervous.
about the total here? 54.5.
Over. I'm not gonna put the under.
Okay. I think, yes. I mean, anytime Kansas City's in the game, the under is a tough play. But I
mean,
do
the
think,
Jets scored.
yeah, but that game went under
Yes,
because Derek Carr can lay an egg.
playing in the rain in
Was it
New
raining?
York. Was it raining? Yes,
I
it
thought
was
it was.
raining.
Well, anyway, but we knew last week, right? Like Oakland plays kind of like they try to play ball control games. The last game between Kansas City and Oakland, the Chiefs scored 4 touchdowns in a quarter, and the game went under by 2 touchdowns. Like, again, there are going to be a decent number of cases where the Chiefs don't play up to expectation offensively, as we just talked about, and then the Raiders play slow.
I'll let you.
You'll let me bet
sail
the
on the under.
Yeah.
On your own. All right, Sunday Night Football is the New England Patriots going back to NRG Stadium, where they had a fairly important win once upon a time against Houston Texans. What do you have this one at?
I said Houston would be getting 4.5.
I have Houston getting 3.
And you are right. Houston is +3, +100, and New England is -3, -120.
Yeah.
Total on the game, 44.5.
So this is interesting. The Patriots have won 2 games against the Eagles, who suck, and the Cowboys, who couldn't get out of their own way.
Yeah, the Cowboys.
They needed a touchdown thrown by a wide receiver, and then Jason Garrett refusing to do anything but try and cover the game to win those 2 games.
Yeah.
So if there was ever a time that Deshaun Watson was going to get over the hump, this is it. But at the same time, Houston has looked disheveled and all over the place, and their defense stinks. So if there was a time for Tom Brady to get right, this would be it as well.
The best matchup of the week, and I don't think it's actually particularly close, is Stephon Gilmore versus DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
That's the best matchup of the entire week. I think if DeAndre Hopkins can make plays individually on the outside, then New England's defensive brilliance is less accentuated than when we go into the game we previously think about, because Deshaun Watson can get out of pressure, he can make brilliant throws. Will Fuller, as we saw on Thursday night, is a great down the field player and is a great complementary weapon. They use tight ends extremely well. So there is a sample paths of games where Houston can score. And New England, we have not seen them as a juggernaut offensively, right? So if Houston can score, it's going to stress New England and make it tough on them. But here's the thing: Gilmore today, right? Amari Cooper caught 0 passes today,
Yes,
even though he was locked up on Gilmore. And again, the rain was a thing, obviously, but it didn't keep a guy. It didn't keep like Michael Gallup from making plays. It didn't keep Edelman and Jacoby Myers on the other side from making plays. Gilmore was terrific today. An interception, a pass breakup. If he can lock down DeAndre Hopkins, I think it makes the game extremely difficult for the Houston Texans.
that's interesting, because the thing that I actually this game to me is all about whether Deshaun Watson can run the ball effectively, because I assume that Stephon Gilmore in that coverage unit, they're going to make things pretty tough. And the one thing that Deshaun Watson can add is that read option game. And if he can all of a sudden stress that pass rush with all the, kind of run fakes, that to me can be the edge that gets them some more passing yards downfield. I mean, that's what Baltimore did.
Here's the tough part about an offense like Houston's, right? An offense like Houston's is not like I don't consider them a successful offense, right? They don't make play after play after play after play the way New England does, and some of those more efficient offenses. They get the chunk plays, right? They get the down the field plays, and that's how they score. And if Gilmore can avoid giving those up, I just don't think that they can cross the street that many times on offense.
Tune in Sunday night to see if they can cross the street. Not 49ers, but Monday Night Football. Minnesota goes to Seattle. Minnesota coming off of a bye. Seattle coming off of sort of a bye, because the Eagles didn't really try very hard to win the football game. Seattle playing at home, always like a real thing. And then Russell Wilson is also pretty good. So what do you have to say?
We talked about this earlier. I think Seattle and Minnesota are similar on a neutral field, and I think Seattle's home field advantage is 3.5. So I said Seattle 3.5.
I have Seattle by 3.
And that is what it is. Actually, towards Minnesota a little bit. To bet Minnesota, you have to lay 115. So this would imply that Minnesota and Seattle are basically equally power ranked on a neutral
Minnesota
field.
coming off a bye, I think. So I had 3.5, and then
You kind of
I adjusted a little bit because I think Minnesota's well rested, and Seattle had to go play, in Philadelphia. So
okay. They're about the same though on a neutral field, wouldn't you say?
I would agree, and this game's super interesting because they're both teams that are like, well, if we just get into the tournament, we can beat anybody. But I don't know if which one is more of a sleeper in your mind, like can beat anybody really?
Seattle. I mean, Seattle's 6-0 this year on the road already. Seattle's won road playoff games before with Wilson, right? We have not seen a team, since Russell Wilson's rookie year to go, through the playoffs and make the Super Bowl without a bye. But to be able to do it, you need a quarterback like Russell Wilson. And to me, like Kirk Cousins has been awesome. He's the best quarterback in that division right now. But he is not like I can't see him winning 3 games on the road.
For what it's worth, Russell Wilson was under pressure 12 times, took 6 sacks, and went 1 for 5 and had 1 run. So, he
didn't play well today.
This was his, one of his worst games. Now, at the same time, he was, really great from a clean pocket, made a couple of really nice throws, particularly those couple down the middle, deep middle. So those are the things that if you see Kirk Cousins take 6 sacks, there's 0 chance they win the game, whereas Russell Wilson can take 6 sacks and they can win the game. I think that's how I would put it.
Yeah, I mean, what I take from this game is that Seattle's defense can play well against an offense that's bad.
Of those good games, any that jump out at you like I might bet them tonight, this morning?
Yeah, I would say San Francisco if you can still get the +4.5. I don't know if that'll be available after Sunday Night Football. If that's not the case, I probably would take the 10 points with Oakland coming off of a disappointing week.
Yeah,
I think you're getting too many there.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, what would that spread be if they won? Like, let's say they won by a touchdown against the Jets, and these two teams have the same record.
Well, that's what I thought it would be, right? I thought they would win that game, and it would be 6.5. Yeah. So that's why I think Oakland is a nice one, as much as I love my Niners. All right, these are the games that are bad, and so we're going to go quickly through them. Tennessee at Indianapolis. I have the Indianapolis Colts getting as 4.5 point favorites.
And I had I had Indianapolis. Sorry, it's late. -2.5. And what do we have here?
Wow, -2.5. So you think Tennessee is better than Indy?
I do. Well, no, I do, because I even
what? Wait, what?
I think
going into this week, you woke up this morning and you're like, hey, Tennessee is better than Indianapolis.
So at consistently reproducible things, yeah. I think Tennessee's defense is very good. I think Ryan Tannehill is the better of the 2 quarterbacks. And I think if they get ahead, Tennessee can stomp on another team. Like, both teams run the football too much. Tennessee does it better than Indy. And so, and the other thing, my thing with the Colts is that, they're getting the most out of Brissett, right? They're getting a lot out of Brissett. But Brissett's bad.
Okay.
Ryan Tannehill is leading the NFL in yards per attempt.
Great. This is an amazing take by you. And I look forward to watching this game now because you've said this.
Okay, because right now
Colts.
it's Colts -3.
Go Colts.
But to bet the Colts at -3, you only have to lay 105. Whereas Tennessee, it's -115.
Yeah,
so
that's a reaction to Tennessee winning by 100 today.
Yeah, but we saw what Indianapolis didn't do on Thursday Night Football.
Sure, it's Thursday night. Colts are better than the Titans. I cannot believe that you have just punted on our Colts.
No,
honestly,
I like the Colts long term.
not more than Tennessee.
I like the Colts long term.
Okay,
But like Tennessee, like I don't know.
all right, here we go. We're moving on.
What do you think the model will say?
If it's 2.5, it'll like the Colts.
Okay. I think if it's 3 like it is now, I think it'll like Tennessee, and we won't go for it because we know that Tennessee will lose because Tennessee's the type of team that loses these types of games and wins the game today
But
against
they're the better
Jacksonville.
better than Indianapolis, in your opinion.
What has Indianapolis done?
What has Tennessee done
I mean,
besides win games that no one cares about and then get clobbered whenever someone gets excited about them? I can't believe we've talked about the Titans this much.
The Indianapolis Colts have lost to the Dolphins at home. They lost to Pittsburgh and Mason Rudolph.
Who was the quarterback in that game?
You tell me what's the difference?
All right, here we go. We're moving on.
What's the difference in the spread between Hoyer and Brissett?
A significant amount. Brian Hoyer played like one of the worst games in NFL history in that game.
Jacoby Brissett is not like.
All right, you have flip-flopped an incredible amount.
Jacoby Brissett
An
is
incredible amount.
Let me look at this. I mean, I like Jacoby as a concept, but he's averaging 6.8 yards per pass attempt.
Uh-huh.
Like, I agree that he's better than Hoyer, certainly, but he's not like. We're not talking about an upper half of the league starter. We're talking about
We're not talking about Ryan Tannehill here.
bottom third of the league starter.
I'm talking about a man like Ryan Tannehill, who wasn't even good enough for the Dolphins. Tampa Bay goes to Jacksonville. We're spending 10 seconds on this game. I have Jacksonville favored by 3.
2.5. And it is 1.5.
Yeah, because Jacksonville got stomped on today. That doesn't
Well, and
surprise
Tampa
me.
Bay won yeah.
Great.
You seem annoyed at this idea that
I can't
the
believe
AFC
that.
South deserved some breath.
I am. I'm honestly very mad that we spent 3 minutes of sleep talking about Tennessee because they don't deserve it. They're bad.
Okay.
You should wear it. You should be forced to wear one of the Titans jerseys that you hate so much
Well,
next Sunday.
their uniforms are
Get a little
woke.
Titans flag.
Their uniforms are woke, but I would.
Instead of the San Antonio Commodores, you just get a nice Titans. They have some sweet designs on it.
Commanders.
Green Bay is going to the New York Giants, and I have the New York Giants getting 5.5 points at home.
I had the Giants getting 9.5 points at home, and you might have to look because it's not up here after Sunday Night Football.
7.5 before Sunday Night Football. I would be interested to see if that is adjusted at all. Probably not.
If it's 7.5, I'm going to lay it with Green Bay.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones can't cover the spread here for the same reasons that Kansas City can, which is that the back door. Kansas City leaves the back door wide open. Daniel Jones shuts it more often than he doesn't.
The Myles Garrett Revenge Game Bowl played by Duck Hodges.
I love how they put the game on the board despite the fact that they don't even know if Duck Hodges or
Mason Rudolph.
Tommy Loren's boyfriend plays in this game. So.
Is it Tommy? Is that her name?
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad I don't care about politics. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Your spread.
I have Pittsburgh laying 2.5.
Pittsburgh by 3.
It is Pittsburgh +1.
Wow.
They are. I kind of like it. I honestly like Cleveland here after this week's games.
Yeah?
Like Mason Rudolph, like we talked about last week, Mason Rudolph was the worst quarterback in that game today.
Right.
And like if Duck plays instead of him, it's not going to be that
Here
much better.
for Duck.
Like his name should start with F.
Yeah. I mean, I expected a much better performance by Pittsburgh. That being said, in Pittsburgh, after what Myles Garrett attempted to do their quarterback, this is going to be one heck of a physical game. I'm just letting you know right now.
Yeah.
And if I did take Mike Tomlin or Freddie Kitchens in a battle of physicality. I'll tell you right now who I'm taking.
I'm telling you, if those two were in a wrestling match, Kitchens would win, though. He'd kill Tomlin. He'd lay on him.
This is even worse than your Titans-Colts take. This is the most heinous take I have ever heard.
One guy's a sumo wrestler and the other guy's a human.
It wouldn't even require them to get physical in any way because Freddie Kitchens would be galloping as fast as he can gallop, which isn't very fast, in the other direction. From one look is all it takes from Mike Tomlin. Freddie Kitchens is...
You're telling me Kitchens is smart enough to understand what that look means?
Yes.
It's
animal instinct. It's like how he reacts to chili. Favorably. Apparently.
I don't know. I would say if he just lays on you, I think game's over. It's like thumb wars between me and my dog.
You can't just lay on someone that's standing up. Right?
Yeah, I think you can get them down if you're bigger.
How would he do this?
This
is worse than your Titans-Colts take. This is an amazingly bad take. Freddie Kitchens versus Mike Tomlin.
I'm not going to fight.
You're going to be wearing half of a Titans jersey and half of a Freddie Kitchens dog pound jacket.
I'm not fighting a water buffalo, okay?
That's a disgrace to a water buffalo, which is
I'm Tomlin.
My Lord. The Los Angeles Rams go to Arizona to face the Cardinals. I have the Cardinals and Kyler Murray getting 3 points at home.
I have the Cardinals getting 6.5.
Wow.
And they are getting 4. So
I have 3.5 here. So you like the Rams? You would take the Rams in this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's, the Cardinals are sort of like going to be overvalued for playing the Niners tough 2 out of the last 3 weeks.
Coming off a bye and
all that kind of stuff. I think the Rams are going to be off a little bit of short rest, all that kind of stuff. But I think the Rams are probably better than what they've shown over the last month. So I don't know. Yeah. It's a tough though, because 4 is a key number. You have to win by basically a touchdown to cover that. So I don't think I'd actually bet the Rams here, but I certainly had them handicapped higher in my own mind.
Yeah, I can kind of get on board with it. I have this just vision of the Rams always destroying the Cardinals, and that's tough to get out.
Yeah,
but
the
at the same time,
is atrocious.
Right, but at the same time, the Cardinals are just that team that like
Jordan Hicks would get flattened by a fullback named Freddie Kitchens.
Correct. The Los Angeles Clippers go to Denver to face the Nuggets, which should be a really high-scoring affair. Not. I have got... Where is this game? I can't find it. Go first.
I did a pick'em.
Yeah, that's what I had too.
And it is a pick'em.
Nice.
Are you serious? The Chargers are not 3 points better than the Broncos. I don't...
Really? Yeah, I mean, Phillip Rivers has looked rough. Who's the quarterback of the Chargers next season?
I think it's Teddy Bridgewater.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one.
Keenan Allen's like a great...
You're rebounding now. You had 2 of the worst takes in the history of the universe, and now you're rebounding.
I'm gonna be a big like you said. You hate politics. I'm gonna resort to this. I'm gonna say that's your opinion. Anytime somebody tries to bring up facts, well, that's just your opinion.
My girlfriend puts like CNN on just out of habit.
Well, just to spite you, I would imagine.
And it's the funniest thing in the world.
I don't even watch that stuff anymore.
Hey, let's get a panel of 15 idiots to spit at each other. I can't believe it. And she she puts it on as white noise, but I'm like, what is this? It's comedy is what it is.
If you I like Sam a lot. But if you've gotten so desensitized to the point where that stuff is white noise, like I'm a little worried. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just because it's like imagine us it'd be like
the reason it's white noise is that she's like working on it.
That's what I'm saying. Like it must be somewhat, you must be somewhat calloused at the idea that like, oh, these people just lie for a living. Right. It's like,
holy God.
Dude, we're just
Washington, Carolina.
This is the bowl before the Carolina Panthers existed. People in the Carolinas rooted for Washington. Did you know that?
What's the spread in this game?
I said Carolina would be 6.5 point favorites.
I said Carolina would be 9.5-point favorites.
It is 10, so you're more right than I am.
Good. Next game, Philadelphia at Miami. These games suck.
I said Miami would be 9.5-point home underdogs.
Wow. We differ greatly here. I have Miami 4.5, getting 4.5.
It is 7.5. The Dolphins were spunky today, by the way.
They tried. Philadelphia did not try.
Would you, under what circumstances would you lay the points here with the Eagles?
Under no circumstances.
Under no circumstances.
The worst game in the history of games, the New York Jets are going to be here in Cincinnati playing the Cincinnati Bengals. And I said that the New York Jets would be favorites of some kind if I could actually find a game. 3.5-point favorites.
Wow, you're correct. I said 6.5, and I'm thinking to myself, because the Jets are way better than the Bengals though. But I agree with the way that I agree with what the numbers converge to. I don't know.
You must have watched the Jets beat the crap out of the Raiders in your mind, and then
I honestly think Darnold's played well.
Yeah.
Over the last, I think Darnold's a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL, and he's rounding into form.
As I've been saying,
the Bengals were spunky today.
The Bengals are just Chase Young away from domination, like the Raiders were Khalil Mack away. All right, that is our podcast. It is 12:52, almost 1 a.m. here on the East Coast. I'm going to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, even though we're going to see each other multiple times. We wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Do you have any Thanksgiving confessions?
Well, I watched way too much college football yesterday.
I was going to say, I want to check in on your resolution to stop watching so much college football.
Well, but the games were good. And I wasn't degenning, flipping through. I watched Penn State, Ohio State, the hometown Buckeyes, What else? And then I watched Georgia versus Texas A&M, and then I went to the Cincinnati Temple game with my wife. So I watched too much college football this weekend.
You had a real day.
And so then when today happened, I was very I would say fatigued. And then us not winning very many picks was also just fatiguing. So maybe this week, not having any action on Tuesday or Wednesday will be good for us.
Be good for you. Because you know who never watches action? This guy right here.
How are you not going to be schooled? How are you going to be schooled on who's going to play in the Belk Bowl if you're not watching Maction on Tuesdays and Wednesdays during the November month?
I would put Maction and CNN on the same. No, I wouldn't do that. I'd rather watch Maction. I'd rather watch bowling than CNN. I have no confessions. I'm confessionless today.
Wow.
I've done nothing wrong. Now,
that's not true.
Check in with me after Thanksgiving, where I will have eaten pounds and pounds of sweets. But so far, I'm in good shape. I have been very strict in my snacking recently. Remember that was one of my confessions lately, was that I snack too much. I've been very strict.
Same.
Lowest I've weighed since high school, actually.
Really? Same.
There you go. All right, that was our podcast. Make sure you check out the cyber sale, and we'll be writing 2 articles this week, one for the Thanksgiving games, one for the rest of the slate, and the podcast will be up on Wednesday. We'll be recording it on Wednesday morning instead of Thursday. Peace out.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.